World War II wasn't just a war of weapons, it was a war of ideas, ambition, and strategy. At the center of the conflict stood the Axis powers, Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. Together, they dreamed of empire, dominance, and historical legacy. But behind the propaganda and parades lay strategies riddled with overconfidence, miscalculations, and internal conflict. In this episode, we unravel the strategy of the Axis powers, how they planned to win the war, where they faltered, and why their grand designs ultimately collapsed. To understand their strategy, we have to go back to the interwar period. Germany, broken by the Treaty of Versailles, was in economic ruin and political chaos. That chaos paved the way for Adolf Hitler, who rose to power in 1933. His goal was clear: to undo the humiliation of World War I, rebuild the German military, and expand the Reich across Europe. In Italy, Benito Mussolini had already been in power since the 1920s. His ideology was rooted in nationalism and imperial revival. Mussolini believed Italy could rise again as a dominant power, echoing the glory of the Roman Empire. By 1936, Germany and Italy formalized their alliance, the so-called Rome-Berlin Axis. Although they shared fascist ideals and territorial ambitions, their strategies were never fully aligned. Germany's strategy was based on speed and decisiveness. The Germans called it Blitzkrieg, lightning war. It combined rapid armored assaults, overwhelming air power, and fast-moving infantry to crush the enemy before they could respond. Blitzkrieg wasn't just a tactic, it was a doctrine, one that promised fast victories with minimal losses. The first test came in 1939 with the invasion of Poland. In just over a month, Poland was overrun. The world watched, stunned. This wasn't like the slow trench warfare of the past. This was something new, and terrifying. After Poland, the Germans turned west. In 1940, they launched a campaign that stunned Europe. Denmark and Norway fell quickly. Then, using an unexpected route through the Ardennes, they bypassed France's fortified Maginot Line. Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg collapsed. France, considered one of the world's strongest military powers, surrendered in just 6 weeks. Germany's early success wasn't just military, it was psychological. Blitzkrieg created panic, confusion, and chaos. The goal was to disorient both the enemy's forces and their leadership. In that sense, it worked brilliantly. Italy, inspired by Germany's victories, entered the war in June 1940. Mussolini wanted to prove Italy's strength and earn a seat at the table of conquest. But Italy's strategy was poorly conceived and even worse in execution. Italian forces moved into North Africa, attempting to capture British-controlled Egypt. They also invaded Greece from Albania. But their military lacked modern equipment, logistical planning, and leadership. Both offensives failed. Germany was forced to intervene, sending troops into the Balkans and North Africa to support its struggling ally. What was supposed to be a partnership of equals quickly became a lopsided relationship. Germany was the engine of the Axis war effort. Italy, more often than not, was a liability. North Africa became a key battleground. The region held strategic importance, control of the Suez Canal, access to Middle Eastern oil, and a route to southern Europe. Hitler sent General Erwin Rommel to lead the Afrika Korps. Rommel was bold, resourceful, and highly respected. Under his leadership, Axis forces pushed the British back and nearly reached Cairo. But Rommel's success came at a cost. Supplies were short, reinforcements were delayed, and the Allies began to adapt. In late 1942, at the Second Battle of El Alamein, the British launched a massive counteroffensive. Rommel's forces were defeated and began a long retreat westward. It marked a turning point. The Axis was no longer advancing in Africa, it was retreating. While battles raged in Africa, Hitler set his sights on the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa, launched in June 1941, was the largest military invasion in history. More than 3 million Axis soldiers surged across the border. The goal was ambitious: destroy the Red Army, capture key cities like Leningrad, Moscow, and Stalingrad, and seize the Soviet Union's vast resources. Hitler believed it would be a quick campaign. He was wrong. At first, the Germans made enormous gains. Soviet forces were unprepared and overwhelmed. City after city fell. But the deeper the Germans pushed, the harder it became. Supply lines stretched thin. Soviet resistance grew. The German army, built for fast victories, wasn't equipped for long campaigns or harsh winters. As temperatures dropped, equipment froze. Soldiers suffered frostbite and starvation. When the Soviets counterattacked outside Moscow in December 1941, the German advance came to a halt. Operation Barbarossa had failed to deliver its promise of a quick knockout blow. This failure was catastrophic. Germany was now fighting a two-front war, against Britain and the Allies in the West, and against the Soviets in the East. The very situation Hitler had wanted to avoid was now a brutal reality. Axis strategy began to unravel. Italy's continued failures forced Germany to divert even more resources. In 1943, the Allies invaded Sicily. Mussolini was deposed and arrested. Italy surrendered to the Allies shortly after, switching sides in the war. Germany quickly occupied northern Italy and installed Mussolini as the head of a puppet state. But the damage was done. The Axis had lost a major partner. The Italian front became yet another drain on German resources. Meanwhile, the Eastern Front turned into a grinding war of attrition. The Battle of Stalingrad in late 1942 and early 1943 was one of the bloodiest battles in history. After months of fighting, the German Sixth Army was encircled and forced to surrender. It was a devastating blow, both militarily and psychologically. At the same time, Allied bombing campaigns were devastating German cities and industry. Germany's ability to produce tanks, planes, and ammunition was being systematically destroyed. Morale on the home front was collapsing. In June 1944, the Allies launched Operation Overlord, the D-Day landings in Normandy. It marked the beginning of the end. Germany now faced full-scale invasions from both east and west. Despite fierce resistance, the German military couldn't hold back the tide. By April 1945, Soviet troops had reached Berlin. Hitler, refusing to surrender, took his own life in his bunker. On May 8, Germany officially surrendered. So what went wrong? Germany and Italy's war strategy was based on rapid expansion, intimidation, and the belief that their enemies were too weak or too slow to respond. That strategy worked, at first. But it wasn't built for sustainability. There was little long-term planning, poor coordination among Axis powers, and massive underestimation of their enemies. Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union opened a front too vast to control. Mussolini's reckless campaigns dragged Germany into unwanted conflicts. And Japan, though a member of the Axis, fought a completely separate war in the Pacific, with no strategic coordination. The Axis powers lost not just because of their enemies' strength, but because of their own strategic flaws. Arrogance, disunity, and a refusal to adapt sealed their fate. Their downfall reshaped the world. Borders were redrawn, regimes fell, and a new global order emerged. The war left over 70 million dead. But from its ruins came important lessons, about leadership, alliance, and the price of unchecked ambition. Thanks for joining us on Real Historian. If you found this deep dive into Axis strategy eye-opening, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And let us know in the comments, what part of World War II strategy would you like us to explore next? Until next time, remember, history is more than dates and battles. It's about understanding how the world works, and how we can learn from its past.